Guys, please, if you can, join the locals, the Patreon, the Cash App, the Buy Me a Coffee, PayPal. Those are right now, they were supplementing the podcast. Right now, those are approaching like $1,500 a month. If those can get to, I don't know, $3,000 a month by the end of the year, the show will pretty much be invincible. The show makes money from Rumble, makes money from YouTube, and makes money from Spotify. But those can and have in the past cut off all payment with no warning. I have no contracts with any of them. I've tried. Every month, I don't know if I'm getting paid by them. As the show makes more and more from Patreon and people just dropping $5 here and there, it's becoming decentralized in terms of revenue. And because of that, it's becoming near invincible to where it no longer is, okay, we just got to stay on YouTube. We just got to stay on Rumble. We got to keep growing. It's hitting a point where the show can now continue regardless of the presidential administration, regardless of the winds of cancel culture and whatnot. Honestly, this is what I've always wanted. It just has never really seemed to be working. For whatever reason, in 2026, it's working. Please, if you can, it is not meaningless if you can join for $1 a month. If you can join for $20 a month, like, dude, you are actually moving the needle to keep this show not only free, but unhinged, uncensored, and frankly, a cobbled together, unproduced mess. But that's why I love it. And I think that's why you guys love it. So please, if you can, join any of those. Those links are in the description. They're in the pinned comment. Thank you. And we are recording on Saturday, February 14th, 2026 at 10:02 a.m. Eastern Time with Colonel Watkins and Colonel Murray waiting on General Blaine. I've been doing so many episodes the last couple of weeks about the Epstein files, satanic ritual abuse. I mean, the fundraisers I do for the guys that hunt down pedophiles. And I know people mean well when they say it, but it's the semantics I don't think they get right when they're like, dude, Tommy's doing so much great work with like child trafficking. And like, man, he's the epicenter of child trafficking. I'm like, no. Say talking about it. They're like, he's the best trafficker out. Like, someone actually said that. Like, he does good trafficking. I was like, motherfucker, you guys have to stop that. So, yeah, that's about where I am right now. And yeah, Steve, how are you doing, sir?
It's been about the same for me. I have a day job. So my day job's been busy with cyber attacks. And at the same time, I've been doing as many shows. Like I was on Crypto Rich's show yesterday for an hour. And we spent the whole hour talking about how bad the messaging was was it Wednesday when Pam Bondi was in front of Congress?
Oh my,
When
yeah.
was that dumpster fire?
The 50,
Um,
the Dow thing.
but everything comes back to Epstein. I mean, everything, right?
Yeah.
All your conversations, all of you just take your pick. It all comes back to Epstein. And, I think we talked about this last week. I don't know, Colonel Watkins, you probably remember better than I do. My memory's terrible right now. But it's a system of systems. And the part that, and this is, I think, the thing that most people don't realize is, and I said this yesterday, that most of this evidence has been handled by multiple people over the last 15 years. So you can't trust any of it. Even if it's so easy to spoof an email. It's so easy to spoof and craft an email. You can make anything look legit. It's super easy. And it's not you classic CIA, and I know you're going to talk about this. Classic CIA is you just flood the entire system with garbage and nobody knows what to believe. And that's what we're seeing. And
Yeah.
as much as I would love to hang my hat on some of this stuff, it's too easy for them to throw it all into the Epstein files and blame Epstein when it's really somebody over here. And that's part of the problem right now, right? I've been shit posting on Twitter all week, just going after people for a lot of the stupidity. But the reality is there's no source of truth for them to latch onto anyway, which is a bigger problem, right? So yeah, this is a self-licking ice cream cone of dysfunction that I don't think is going to go away anytime soon.
Well, and it's one of the things you said, Colonel Watkins, I believe at the end of the last show about psyops and like specifically the things they target, and women and children, the things that elicit a response from men. And as much as like you read these things and you get filled with like self-righteous fury, I do have to pause and go, this is a pretty powerful response that I didn't have 24 hours ago. Is
Correct.
does somebody want this response? Sometimes there really is stuff that there is righteous anger.
Correct.
But my first thought is like, why is this being put in my head? Why do all of a sudden I care about WMDs in Iraq? Kind of thing is,
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I feel.
You don't. You really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not being facetious either, because it's half the stuff that you see, and I've said this for years, half the stuff that we see in front of us is contrived nonsense. Like that whole Senate hearing was such a staged. So there's one of three things that happened, right? Number one, she went in there and was briefed, had talking points, and blew that up on her own. Number two, she went in there and purposely blew it up. And number three, they were all playing their parts. And I think it was number three. I think they were all playing their parts. I think they all knew about it. Cindy McCain said the quiet part out loud. Everybody in DC knew what was going on. Everybody knew what he was doing. And Bondi was right. 3 presidents knew about it, but you're the one that released the files. You guys dropped the TAC nuke. And look, this stuff's plutonium. The real stuff, not this superficial stuff where Epstein was talking to Thiel and he was a business partner with Bannon. That's child's play. The stuff that really matters is where people were paid tremendous sums of money to rape, torture, and dismember kids. That's the stuff that's in the files. That's the real stuff. That's the stuff that he supposedly bought the acid to get rid of, right? That's the stuff the public can. They see that. I guarantee you will see the world unite in a way you have never seen before, and there will not be a safe place for these people to hide, because that's the real insidious stuff. And I've kicked doors on red rooms, and I can tell you that the one thing you cannot unsee, you can't unsee a room full of body parts, and you just can't get that smell off of you. You just can't. So I've seen some very, very hardened dudes that have seen a lot of stuff that just broke down in tears when they saw that. And it's all over the world. It's not just in Epstein's island. It's all over the world. There's islands all over the Pacific, islands all over the Caribbean, islands all over the Atlantic, Southern Atlantic. I mean, there's tons of places that they can hide these kinds of operations and you would never know. And they all have private jets so they can get there. I thought the revelation that was interesting, I don't know if it's true or factual, was the revelation that the guy who built Gateway Computers bought a yacht with a submarine pen underneath it and a sub.
Right.
I'd like to see if that was real. That adds a very interesting twist to the island, right? Because you're like, think about all the people you could bring in and out of places and you could never see.
Well, Jesseline had a submarine license. So, I mean,
what?
she had a.
She
yes.
did? Mother.
Yeah.
You just can't make the shit up.
Yeah, she had her helicopter license. He paid to get the other one pilot's license, and yeah. So, but it's not just islands. I mean, Mark Dutroux was the Jeffrey Epstein of Belgium, and he did it right downtown in his in the basement of his big palatial residence. And he sealed up kids in the walls alive that they later found dead.
I didn't know.
There was all kinds of other stuff that was discovered that was never part of his actual court case about hunting. And they would go out in the woods and actually hunt children with dogs. That was never actually part. There were allegations of that happening, but that was never part of, because these people own big, large estates too. So it isn't just an island thing. And I mean, if you look at what happened with Mountbatten, the royal, that was like the guy in India forever, and all of the allegations that were made against him in India, this has been going on for a very long time. Seville, all of them. To me, I still put it in the perspective of the kind of concept that when I first started looking at Operation Gladio is the 3 elements of illicit funding, one of which is human trafficking, one of which is weapons trafficking, and one of it is narco trafficking. And the thing that makes that wheel able to perpetuate is the grease at the hub. And that grease is blackmail. And the human trafficking piece of it generates the capability of blackmailing people into doing the bidding of this enterprise. And so I always look at all of this stuff as somehow fitting into that wheel. And that literally came out very early on when I started investigating Operation Gladio, because you find out, like, the headquarters of the bank, it was called the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, BCCI. If you go back and you read in-depth information about the BCCI, when they would have meetings at some of their branch headquarters, they would ship women in to the bank to service the elite people coming in. So none of what we're discovering here in the research that I've done is new. Sure. Yeah. So, and BCCI did all of the money laundering for, not all of it. They were a piece of the money laundering apparatus. And at the end of the day, within 7 years of it being created, within the first 4 years of it being created, it became the 7th largest bank in the world. And basically all they did was money launder.
Yep. Morgan Stanley, Chase, they were all involved, every single one of them.
As like the second and third, but the entry point for the cash was BCCI.
Wow.
In the Vatican Bank.
What it shows, though, is that every institution in our society has been compromised.
Rotted, waterlogged, rotted. Yeah. You can't strip it up, build a new one.
Well, that's the question, right? Where do you go from here? This is part of my conversation with Rich yesterday. You know, part of my problem with the Trump administration right now is their messaging is just terrible. Whoever is running the information campaign is a moron, because Bondi had a perfect opportunity to unite the entire country behind her. Had she just gone in and said, look, we're investigating a number of different people from these files. We've got grand juries going on for other things, and we're looking into some of these allegations. But remember, these files are 10 years old. They've gone through so many different organizations. We don't know what's real and what's not real, but we're investigating it. Oh, that's all she had to say. And she would have had the entire country go, okay, we got it, right? She didn't say that. She went on that rant about the Dow and, you know, is my perm okay? Whatever that was all about, you know, terrible messaging, right? And right now, the one thing the country and the planet needs more than anything else is good messaging. They need somebody to say, this is what we're doing. This is the plan. This is why we're doing this. This is where we're leading to. This is the end state we want to reach. And none of that's materialized. That's why the public is losing faith, because there's no messaging around what they're doing. They're simply just saying, yeah, this is a hoax and we need to move on. It's not going away. You have to address it in a way that the public can see that, yeah, we're looking at it, but we can't do anything with it. They'll understand that more than they'll understand the Dow's at 50,000. Everything's awesome.
And not everyone will understand that, but enough people that are to a degree even keeled will be like, okay.
Even if it's not real, you know, even if you're not investigating, the AG never goes in front of Congress and says we're not doing something.
Yeah. Why
are we talking about this? I mean, that's not the messaging. I mean, because what she did was she basically handed the midterms off to the left, because you notice how they haven't talked about Clinton's. They haven't talked about Obama. They didn't talk about Bush. They didn't spend any amount of time talking about the frequent flyers like Tom Hanks and some of the others that supposedly went to the island or in the manifest. She could have addressed all of that. And it could have been a very succinct conversation, and she could have put them all right back in their place. But instead, you know, the messaging was terrible. And the one thing that Trump needs more than anything else right now is public support. He needs people to see that he's actually trying to do something besides fleece the country. Because the other side of it is half the country already, hates the orange man, or the mango emperor. And the problem with that is, if you want to keep us out of a civil war and you want to keep us out of going kinetic, you've got to bring people together. And this is not the way to do it. I'm sorry, it's just not.
So I'm not going to disagree with the content of what you just said, but I do not
believe. Feel free to disagree with all of it.
I would if I did. Trust me, but I don't think half the country hates Trump. I think there is a minority that does, that the messaging of the people behind that minority has a very big presence in the controlled media that projects that as being a much bigger entity than it is.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a very good point, because they do have the loudest microphone, and we do see all of that in the feeds and in the threads. Yeah, you're right.
Yes.
Good point.
Yeah, that's a concerted, and that just basically goes to your point about messaging. When you control the message, you are able to project a much bigger presence than you actually have. But it's done through manipulation, and I believe that using their methods, and I mean, I know in warfare you kind of have to co-opt their methods in order to defeat them, but I don't think, when you said that she could have just said they're investigating when they're not, I don't think that's the answer, because that's basically just patently lying to us to pacify us.
I agree, but you see what you get my point.
No,
though,
I
right?
understand.
My point is, say something that's intelligent. That's not. Why are we talking about this? And I agree.
Yeah, that's the part that I agree with, because one of the things that I have done way too much, because it makes my head hurt, is going back during these big controversies like Iran-Contra or Waco, when I did really deep digs into those and what was at the basis of it, the truth, I had to sit through mind-numbing commissions, committee hearings, and listen to these people. And what really got me to look into Chuck Grassley is looking back when he was in the House of Representatives. That guy has been in Washington, D.C. for like 60 freaking years.
Yeah. And that's a problem. That's a massive problem.
Well, right. And so I'm watching, and I'm like, Chuck Schumer was in the House, and, he's sitting there, and they all play a role. And not a single time did any of those commissions or investigations or anything actually produce any truth. None. As a matter of fact,
Congressional hearings don't go anywhere.
Yeah. So I have this set of facts before I watch these hearings. And then I turn those hearings on and I watch hour after hour after hour. And they're skillfully, so they're skillfully asking questions that walks right around the truth. And it's like it's a scripted presentation to bamboozle the American people.
It absolutely is. Absolutely,
yes.
100%. That is the best description of that I have ever heard. Yes, it is. Because I've sat in congressional hearings where I'm like, that's a blatant freaking lie. What are you talking about? And here's another one. Bondi could have gone in there and said, all right, here's the deal. You're all in the files. Who wants to ask me a question? You're all in there. I can show you the emails. I can show you the audit trail. Who wants to ask me a question? Hearing over, right? But that's a great point. They've most of them have been there so long that they're so divorced from reality. Like I use the example of Patty Murray, right? I was at Patty Murray's office in DC, I want to say, I don't know, 07, 08, right? Because I was pissed about what was going on at Walter Reed. I had several soldiers that were wounded there. And I'm sitting in her office, and it was clear this woman did not want us in her office. She did not want to talk to us. They 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 play a really good part when they're in front of the camera, but they do not want to talk to their constituents. They do not care about us at all, and they make no bones about it. So I would if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I would say that. And by the way, even the lottery has been shown to be tainted because of Epstein. So man, that was like, wow, that just confirmed everything I thought. So anyway, but I think they're all playing a part. They're all handed scripts. They're all handed notes. Before they do anything, they walk in the room, they do what they're told, and then they leave and they go party and laugh at the American people. But they're all completely divorced from reality. None of them have any. Look at AOC. Look at AOC's transition from when she came in and she was a dumb bartender to now she's a dumb senator that still doesn't know the issues, but her talking points are a lot more polished. She's more polished in front of the camera. She's still as dumb as a sack of hammers, but she's really, really polished in front of the camera. That's coaching, and they all get it. They all go through it. Go ahead.
So AOC is not who she's not dumb. And this whole bartender story is garbage. Her first job out of college, I mean, she went to Boston College. She has an economics degree. She's not stupid.
I think
her first job out of college was in USAID.
Why does that not surprise me?
It's like saying she's in the CIA. Okay.
That gets funnier and funnier. I've done no research into her, right? I hear her talk nails on a chalkboard. I've heard enough.
Right. I know. And that's what they're hoping, I think. And if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on this. I believe it was in Nigeria that is like the month after she left the country, they had a CIA coup.
Why does that not? None of that surprises me at all.
So to me,
then how do you explain her relationship with the Social Democrats? Because she's heavily funded by the Social Democrats.
That's so easy. If you go back through the CIA history,
you're going to tell me that's CIA too.
For funding both sides.
Well, that's true. They are. Okay, I led myself to that one.
Yeah. So both sides. It's just like funding the Democrats and the Republicans. It's all a facade.
Yeah. You realize that's treason, right?
I do.
Yeah, that's treason.
I do, but
if they put a candidate, if the CIA put a candidate in office and is continuing to fund a candidate that is not who that is treason. 100%.
So you know that in the emails that there's the talk of Kathy Rumler being awarded a CIA medal. I don't know if you caught that. So if you go back and you research the particular medal that she got, you are not allowed to have that medal unless you're either you're assigned to the CIA or you're under their operational control. And the only example of people that I found that were civilians, but under the operational control of the CIA that's been awarded that medal was the 4 Alabama National Guard pilots that were flying in the Bay of Pigs. Wow. And they were under the operational control of the CIA. She received that medal from the CIA. So that was confirmation for me that she is also part of an operation. So
now I understand why JFK wanted to disband the CIA. I mean, everything goes back to Dulles Brothers. Everything.
Well, but they were agents for the oligarchs, right? For the customers of Sullivan and Cromwell. They were not acting on their own personal enrichment. They were agents. They're the Praetorian Guard of the oligarchs. And when they get marching orders from Sullivan and Cromwell, and, Covington and Burling is an equivalent of Sullivan and Cromwell today. So, and there's many others that we've come across as far as the law firms and the lawfare that they perpetuate, but they're doing it on behalf of this other class. And that class is basically the ones with the strings to the law firms. They use the law firms as kind of a round robin. If you go through some of the alumni of these, you see that they're on both sides of the aisle. You're going to
Yeah,
find
there's no aisle. There's no aisle.
Yes,
Let's call a spade a spade. There's never been an aisle. That's all
So
a facade.
correct. And so they go back into these law firms when their party is not in power, but they're just replacing the other party that was just there that is now in power. It's the same thing.
Yeah, birds of the same feather. All right. Yeah. Eh, I'm still back at this is treason. This is the CIA operating on our shore is treason in its purest form. And she's not the only one, right? That's where I'm stuck at. She's not. I know she's not the only one.
No, Spanberger was an actual one on the payroll and was in Congress. There's lots of them. Porter Goss. Go back and look at Porter Goss.
That dude's got an interesting past.
He spent his whole career in the CIA.
Yeah, he's got a very interesting
then
past.
Comes down to Florida and gets elected to Congress. And what's his big claim to fame?
Former CIA.
Patriot Act.
Yeah.
And then what was his reward?
When was that authored? I heard that. So I've never seen anything that says when it was actually penned. I heard it was penned in like 98 or 99. It wasn't penned.
It was. And there is documented evidence that that's the case. But Peter Goss helped shepherd it through the House. And then what was his reward for the role that he played? He got to be the CIA director. So there's so many of these anecdotal kind of historical facts that when you kind of scan out to the 30,000 foot look, you're like, none of that is a coincidence. None of that was not part of the planning. And I don't know, I've not actually traced this down to a fact, but there's lots of talk about Peter Schiff being promised by Hillary Clinton that he was going to be the CIA director when, and that leads me to.
You mean Adam Schiff?
Yes.
Yeah.
That leads me back.
That's true. That's actually true.
Okay, so that leads me back to George H.W. Bush, right? Mm-hmm. So technically, he was never in the CIA, and he was like the first guy that didn't grow up in the CIA, and he's going to get to be the CIA director. Oh, but then what did we find out? He was in the CIA from the 50s all the way through the 60s, the 70s, and his oil company was a front.
Mm-hmm.
And so how long has Adam Schiff been in the CIA?
Oh, easy 20 years. Easy.
So that's what I'm saying. There's so many patterns from history that once you understand what our real history is, it makes what's going on today seem completely different than the take that you would get, if you were just kind of out here with your high school education or even a college degree, because all of that history is fake.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about that on the roundtable on Thursday night. I asked the question, how much of what we see, how much of our history is BS? All of it.
It's got to be an overwhelming percentage. If we've just seen how much horseshit in our lives in the last 5 years that we've seen arise, be told as truth, be hammered down, then be questioned, whittled away at, and now openly mocked at as, it's the three phases, ridiculed, violently resisted, and then accepted as self-evident. And the third one, I think, is the most profound. It's not just that you accept that you're wrong. No. I always thought that. In the last 5 years, you do have to start looking back at, we always talk about how much easier it was to get away with shit before the internet. What about before the printing press? I mean, you start going, wait, hold on. Yeah, it's I would say it's probably almost entirely a lie.
Well, here's one for you. This is the one I've been noodling on for the last week and a half. So part of, and I'm sure Colonel Watkins did this too. When you go to War College or you go to Commander Staff College, you do a lot of battle studies, right?
Yes.
I literally walked Little Round Top at Gettysburg with a whole group of Civil War scholars, and these guys knew everything about the battle. They knew everything about most of the soldiers, and then we did a battle study at Tarawa and watch you walk the beaches of Tarawa, and Right now, the beaches of Taro are basically a garbage dump. Batio Island is tiny. It's maybe, 600 square yards of dirt. But you have to ask the question, how much of that has been curated? How much of that's been created? How much of that is real? Like, did the Battle of Midway really happen?
Yeah,
Did we really do that? I mean, we wouldn't know, right? So, and not to say that it didn't happen, but did all those events happen the way we think they happened? And, was there some other hand that was involved in that we don't know about, right? Because
almost certainly.
And one of the things that I dislike immensely about the way history is told is that it's the religion of the state. The religion of the state dictates what the narrative is. And Daryl Cooper talks about this, and as soon as he said it, I'm like, yep, I've run into that. Like World War II, the narrative of the state is Hitler was bad, Allies were good, nothing else along those lines can be questioned. And yeah, we did some pretty bad shit too. We firebombed Japan. Again, is that real? But, you look back at history and you got to start questioning how much of this has been curated, how much of this is not real. And I can't look back now and go, yeah, that's real. I mean,
so only part of the Allies were good, right? Russia was always bad. Or the Soviet Union.
That's right. I forgot
because we went to war with them as soon as we finished World War II.
Yeah, no. Russia's Nazis. They spent 27 million lives fighting the Nazis, and they're currently fighting Azov Nazis, but they're Nazis. Make no mistake.
Yeah.
They've killed more Nazis definitionally than anyone. It doesn't. No, I mean, right now the left is calling like Putin Nazis.
Yeah.
They have killed more Nazis provably.
That's in between of them calling him a communist.
Of course it is.
Yeah. And so, the powers to be had already changed the narrative. I mean, Churchill is talking about the Iron Curtain, and Dulles is sending cables back saying the real enemy is the Soviet Union. I don't know why we're fighting the Nazis. So you can just see the perpetuation of, and I had no idea. I mean, I never learned about Operation Sunrise in any history, not Air War College.
They don't teach it. They don't teach it.
No.
Yeah.
They don't.
Good luck trying to find anything written about it too.
Yeah. Well, you can. It's in books, but not books specifically like The Devil's Chessboard. It's in there. We just did that book on my show. They talk all about it in a very braggingly way that, they had already figured out a way to begin the war against the Soviet Unions by this little coveted meeting before the war's even over, that Alan Dulles was negotiating with the Nazis to rat-line them out of Germany and save them so they could save their stay-behind unit network and start using it. And I just recently, I pride myself on kind of a broad brush of all of these nefarious things. I don't know how this escaped me, but I had never heard until like 3 or 4 weeks ago about this thing called Detachment A. Never heard of it. Have you heard of it, Steve?
I've never heard. Yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
Okay, Detachment A. Detachment A was set up right after, you'll get varying dates, but it was basically right after World War II. And it was this top secret, like not even top secret. It's like 3 levels above that. It was not declassified until 2014. And Detachment A was an entity that was put together, and they actually have a website, detachment-a.org. And there's video after video after video of all these Army guys talking about being in Detachment A. Well, the reason why no one wants to talk about Detachment A, and it's not in any of those videos, but you have to understand the timeline, is because Detachment A was being trained by Nazis. They were being trained by the Nazi stay-behinds, and they actually brag about being stay-behind units, i.e. Gladio. And they even have a video of them pitching tents, like a tent city, inside of secured barbed wire on a mobile basis where they were digging up the Nazi stay-behind caches of weapons that were put there by Reinhard Gehlen and Otto Skorzeny and General Wolf. And they dug up, they had a map because that was Sunrise. Here's our stay-behind units and all of our Soviet material, and you rat line all my guys out, right? That was the Sunrise deal. So they have the map of where all these stay-behind caches of weapons are. So Detachment A's, one of their jobs was to pitch tent cities over all of these caches of weapons, dig them all up. Because the one thing you couldn't do after World War II was be doing domestic terrorist activities, which is what Gladio was, with Nazi weapons, right? Because they're all Nazi weapons. So we have to change them all out for NATO weapons. And who was sitting beside Alan Dulles at Operation Sunrise during those negotiations? General Lyman Lemetzger, who was Eisenhower's logistician.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jones
So you know, if you're going to be changing out weapons, you have to have a logistics officer that's going to be able to procure all of those World War II excess weapons to put them into these caches and take all the Nazi weapons out. So they're literally showing me a video of these tent cities and talking about changing out the stay-behind equipment from Nazi into NATO-approved equipment. And my mind is blown. And I just found this like 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
The OCD in me loves that, though. I love that they went back and changed the not taking a political stance on this. The OCD in me loves that they went back and standardized. Like I do that with titles of podcasts and thumbnails and shit. I'm like, I see what you're doing, kind of abstractly. I've never heard of Detachment A, and I'd like to think I'm pretty well versed in this shit. Keep going.
All right. Well, it gets even better. Do you know what their nickname was?
Yep, I'm looking at the site right now. It's a
Do you know what their nickname was? A-teams.
Of course they were.
Now go back and look at that TV show we grew up on about the A-teams. They were the heroes.
That started in 85. Yep. That's funny.
They were the heroes.
Yeah. That's
so
funny.
They shifted after World War II. They used a bunch of these A-team guys in the Laos area of Vietnam as well. And so I was blown away by how all of this stuff, once you understand how Gladio works and you go back and you start kind of processing all of the history again, it all makes so much more sense.
Yeah, you realize that how much of what we've been fed is complete fabrication and nonsense.
And not just fabrication, but what's being withheld. One thing I always think about is like, so you're talking about Detachment A. Okay, we're just learning about that, but that was always there. The analogy I always use is like I always use this analogy is like, don't forget, like Genghis Khan had a DNA double helix. Like, just because they had no comprehension of that doesn't mean it wasn't there. And like that's what I'm thinking about. It's like it was still there, 80s, 90s, 2000. It was just because we didn't know. So naturally, you go, okay, what's going to be declassified in 2086? What's happening right now?
So, Steve, do you know what we currently call Detachment A? ODA. What does ODA stand for?
I'll be damned. I'll be damned. Wow.
What's ODA?
Wow.
What's ODA?
I'm not even going to talk about how much work I did with them, but you know, but
that is the evolution. ODA
this is me being speechless, by the way. Nice job.
Operational Detachment Alpha, which is a part of our special forces, their origins is Detachment A, trained by Nazis.
Wow.
I know.
My mind's blown right now. I'm just gonna put that out there. Yeah.
All right. So
all
that's
the stuff
what
that we did
through.
To support them, all the stuff that we did to clear the way for them. Wow.
Everything.
Wow. I feel dirty. I need a shower.
So that's what I'm saying. Our history isn't necessarily not true. It's taught in a way to make you feel like or to make you believe that we were always the good guys.
Yeah.
But the pieces that they have purposely left out, the connective material, allows you to have that perception when in fact it's not true at all.
So that begs the other question.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I'm going to throw it out there because there was a lot of tech that was brought back from Nazi Germany, a lot of tech. And it was stuff that we hadn't even had on the drawing board. I'm wondering how much of that translated into another ODA that is on that side of the fence, right? Because all that stuff went under the Atomic Energy Commission, didn't go under DOD. They moved it completely out of DOD so nobody would ever look at it, right? Because what's a perfect place to hide? It's like the labs, right? You know,
Yes.
PNNL, you know, Patel Labs, you take your pick, right?
Yeah, they're all DOD.
And yeah.
Well, have you looked into Battelle Labs?
I was going to work there, actually. I turned down a CISO job there.
Okay, so I did, as probably a year and a half ago, I looked into them and their foundation. Really bad juju. If you look at the overlap between the CIA, DARPA, and Battelle, it's like they function as one.
They are one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't tell you how I know that.
Support all of these youth programs out of their foundation.
I was just going to say, it used to, I don't know how it is now, but 10 years ago, there was a really solid recruiting effort going on to bring in young talent and young engineers. I don't know if they've offshored it or not, but suffice it to say that there was very active recruiting. And when I was talking to them, I don't know, it's years ago now, I remember telling a buddy, hey, I'm talking to these guys to go be the CISO. And he's like, just walk away. Don't, just walk away. He didn't say why. He just said, walk away, dude. Don't even go. You don't want that on your resume. I'm like, what? Really? He's like, just walk away, dude.
Really?
Like, okay. Yeah. He didn't tell me why. He's never told me why. Even today, I talked to him like 2 weeks ago. He'll never bring it up. Never.
I just told you why. It is a different face of the CIA.
Yeah. And he probably knew that I wouldn't survive there.
Right. Because if you've got ethics, you can't.
Oh, I just don't have the personality to deal with their bullshit. Just, God. Have you ever dealt with them?
No, I just researched them.
Oh, my God.
I know some of the people. I had 2 friends that went to work there, but didn't last very long.
Oh, they're insufferable to deal with. I mean, I dealt with them at Paycom on a regular basis, and I've probably told this story 100 times, but it bears repeating. You'd be in a room with all the agencies, right? DIA, CIA, NSA. You'd have all the different circuits in the room, Air Force, Army. And somebody'd say, hey, we need to share information on this specific target set because they're using attack surfaces that will get them into X, Y, and Z in the classified networks. And it goes around the table. Everybody's like, yeah, we could do that. We could do that, blah, blah, blah. It's CIA. It's just no. No what? Just no. No, you can't share. No, you don't have the target set. No what? And it's every single time. And they were so insufferably arrogant every single time you're in the room. Like, you are not that smart. You really aren't that smart. So every single time. That's why I have a deep psychotic hatred of them, because every time I worked with them, I just want to bludgeon them to death with a really dull object.
Well, generally speaking, if you go back and you look at that, if you were actually trying to take out bad guys, they were probably their guys.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other revelation, right? You just said it. That's the other revelation.
Full circle.
All of the bad guys are CIA. All the bad guys are funded by CIA. All the bad guys were organized and trained by the CIA.
Yes. So you're not allowed to hit them.
Oh, I think about all the American soldiers that were killed in Iraq and Afghanistan by guys that we trained, that we funded.
Yes.
God, it makes my blood boil.
Yeah.
That's why I want to. Yeah. I tell you what I do. I said this yesterday on Rich's show. I'm like, if I was Trump, that's what I'd do. I would literally, knowing what I know, if I was briefed on the Epstein files, right? I just came into it. He knew, by the way. He lived in New York. He knew Epstein. He knew what was going on. Yeah. But if I was him and when I was hearing this for the first time, which by the way, statistically impossible in Washington, D.C., that you didn't know what was going on. But
Yeah.
let's just assume that that's the case. The first thing I do is mobilize the 82nd, mobilize the 101st, bring in third ID, bring in first brigade, or 125, and start arresting everybody. Yeah. Put them on planes at Andrew, take them down to Gitmo, we'll sort them out down there. And then I bring Radcliffe in, and I would look at him and go, all right, you got 24 hours to purge everybody in the CIA. I don't mean arrest, purge them. You do it or I'll do it. There's a brigade standing by outside Langley. You got 24 hours, and then I'm going to go after you. That's what needs to be done. I mean, that's how bad this is. But here's the problem with that. You got to figure out where the money is and who's the institutional money behind it, and who's the institutional, fingers behind it. And it's names that none of us have ever heard. So that's the problem. You have to roll everybody up at the same time.
And if I'm the CIA, I'm already thinking what you've talked about. There's eventually going to be some sheriff that comes to town. Man, I'd want to get some guys in the upper echelons of these of the 82nd of armor. Be like,
my guy. They're laced throughout. They're laced throughout. There's a lot of former.
Oh, there's so many military people in this story. Yeah. So many. It's so discouraging.
Yeah.
So many military in this story. I mean, just look at Nugent Hand. The it was a counterpart to BCCI, since we already talked a little bit about it. It was a bank just like BCCI set up in Australia, and every branch was ran by a retired general officer. And it was nothing but a money laundering operation for the CIA. General Yates was like the president of the bank. And their branch at Chiang Mai, their branch at Hawaii, every one of them was a retired general.
Yep.
And they knew exactly what was going on in that bank.
Yep. Their daily routine was play 18, go to the office for 5 minutes.
Michael Hand, a special force. I think he was Green Beret. Nugent Hand, it was actually named after him. Yeah.
So my question, and I did a 3-hour show yesterday with Dave Collum and Will Ramsey. Why are we seeing all the Epstein files now? And
that's the answer I don't have.
Well, and so we went into this for 3 hours yesterday, and people, I think their genuine answer, I don't think they're correct, but I think their genuine answer is, it tends to be like, well, they're pressured by so many people. But my entire logic is the entire point of the Epstein blackmail is to make people do things that are obviously against their own interest and not say why they're doing it. They don't care about the constituents. That's right. The whole point of having this powerful blackmail is so therefore we can't just say that they voted their way into it. It's like, no, the entire point of the blackmail is like, we're going to use this to bulldoze countries and you won't say anything because there's a video of you fucking a 4-year-old. So what force made them release it? That's what I want to know.
I'm going to let you answer this first because I have a premise, but
I'll tell you my premise. I don't think it was Trump either. I don't think it's left or right. It's seemingly disgruntled people. If it's not organized with a broader plan of changing things, if it's not just disgruntled. If this is the analogy I used yesterday, if Snowden can come out, whether or not he's a limited hangout, let's say he isn't. If he can come out and say he spilled all this stuff because it was on his conscience that emails were being tapped. You don't think that there's someone somewhere it's on their conscience that they're finding videos of 2-year-olds being decapitated? So whether or not it's an organized group or whether or not it's a handful of disgruntled vigilantes, I don't know, but it doesn't seem to be, and this is what Will Ramsey said yesterday, whenever crazy shit happens, 2008, 2001, COVID, the end result is some form of restriction of our liberties. We kind of get marched into it and we don't realize till hindsight. The result of this is I'm seeing people on the left and right be unified that I've never seen in my life. So who would release? Because in the entire value of the blackmail is no one knows what it is.
Right.
Once the beans are spilled, it loses its value. It's not an actual thing like a gun where it doesn't matter whether or not you like my gun. I have it. The blackmail is hey, I got you cheating on your wife. I got you, tax evasion. Once it's out,
you've diffused the bomb.
So who would willingly get rid of their ace in the hole blackmail? Who would do that? And I don't.
Well, I
That's my
think
best answer is
we're back at
disgruntled.
why, and I'm curious what Colonel Watkins thinks, because
But they're the ones that were being blackmailed, and the ones that was blackmailing them are not the ones that released this information.
Correct.
So the bomb was diffused. And in order to protect the people around it, you have to have that bomb diffused.
Yeah.
There's a counterpoint to that, or kind of a corollary piece of that. Anytime the CIA is feeling pressure on them, they flood the zone with information to overwhelm. And that is also one aspect of this flood of information is the confusion, and they do that prior to something else going to happen. So while everybody's distracted with all of this, they're doing something else. So there's lots of aspects as to why now, because I think if we're going to address election stuff, this has to be out there. The people that were being blackmailed are now not being blackmailed because the information is all out there public. So it allows you to move on to the next step.
I have a different take.
It's a form of liberation, almost like, hey, whoever held the blackmail, you don't have it anymore. And it's
I have a different take on that.
All right,
I think there's a lot of truth in that, right? But I look at it as the same people that were controlling this information, because Bondi was involved in the first Epstein. She was in the orbit during the first Epstein.
No,
arrest.
she was not. She was the state attorney in Tampa. She didn't have anything to do with that.
Oh, I'm sure she was involved. One thing I know about the Bush family is if there's 1 degree of separation, you can bet somebody's got their fingers on it. Well, you're probably right. So I'll concede on that.
Okay.
But my take is the same people that were curating this information, releasing the information, are the same people that are in the files. They have no vested interest to release this information. And you typically you dump that information and the assets when you don't need the assets or the information anymore, right? That means if you have control of the money, you don't need the assets. You don't have to control the individuals if you already control the money and the money supply, and you can manipulate the money supply, because all of it was about money laundering at the end of the day, right? I mean, most of the operations led back to the banks anyway. And I realize I'm oversimplifying, but just bear with me for a second. I'm still back at the why, right? I'm still back at the why. Like, why now? Why the timing now? Why would they release this information, or at least partially release this information? Because the other side of this too is when you're doing influencing operations, you have to have an end state that you're trying to reach. You have to bring the public along to reach the end state. And that's why I was so focused on the messaging from Bondi, because the end state is what matters in this. I don't care what's in the files. I really don't, right? Because to me, you can't verify any of this stuff legitimately after 10 years of changing so many hands. And what needs to happen is there needs to be messaging around, this is what we're doing with this information. This is why it was released, not because we were ordered to do it. We're releasing this information because the public needs to know that the whole system is rotted to the core, right? So that's my take.
So if we looked at this as an actual munition, like a bomb.
Yeah.
If the control, and I mean, there's hundreds, if not thousands of people that obviously were being blackmailed by this material. You have an entire army of people that nefarious people controlled through this blackmail. They've just been neutralized as an enemy combatant, right? Because if the strings are cut and there is no blackmail material, they are no longer part of the enemy force. I'm not saying they're good guys at all.
They no longer have a vested interest to cover it up, because fuck it. You're,
So if
some of
I'm
these people have done
hold
some
on a second, if I'm
heinous
the
hold on,
Chase
let it,
Manhattan,
yeah, let her
if
finish.
I'm the Chase Manhattan Bank guy and I'm blackmailable, the minute I'm not blackmailable anymore, then I'm free to operate on my own. If I'm the guy that is running a particular company and that company through my leadership is being dictated to do nefarious things, as soon as that material is released, I'm no longer under orders of that nefarious party and I am free to act on my own. I'm just suggesting that it neutralized a whole bunch of potential people that have very prominent roles in the world, because this was worldwide, that are no longer part of that. That doesn't mean they're going to make good choices.
Sure.
It just means they're not going to be directed by nefarious people to consistently make bad choices.
Or any consistent choice, any motive force that is streamlined.
Right. That doesn't mean they're going to make good choices on their own.
No, not at all. But it does. It is a step forward.
I'm laughing at
That's
the
the way
comedy
I view it.
Yeah.
Okay, we released all this information. Make good choices.
No. I'm with you.
I'm saying they're going to. I'm just saying they're not going to be coerced into making consistently bad ones.
Look, I think you're right, and I don't mind being wrong on some of this because it's all conjecture, right? You're looking at this mountain, at this big giant turd, and you're like, what does this turd mean? But some of these people have committed heinous crimes. I mean,
I'm with you.
Crimes.
I'm with you.
Right?
They didn't get caught stealing candy.
Yeah, to me,
they're still enemy combatants of humanity.
Yeah, well, yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
My apologies for interrupting you on that because I'm like, my brain automatically goes to, great, the information's out there. If you were raping, torturing, or killing children, you need to be killed. You need to be hung.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that's not true.
Yeah, but I get your point is valid though. Like they're free to make other decisions away from being controlled, which is could be beneficial.
People are guilty of a whole bunch of bad things.
Oh yeah,
but they are not able to use that crime any longer to unleash because these people control big things.
Yeah, they do.
Those big things
that's a valid point.
Used against all of us.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
It is a step forward, no matter how low the threshold is of like, they raped kids or something. It is which brings me to the end state. So what if the end state is they're no longer controlled? Who is pushing that? And I'm cautiously optimistic, but who is pushing that? If this seems to be the direction, what motive force is saying you can no longer do that?
Here's the interesting thing that happened this week, right? Which is related. They raided Maricopa County this week.
Oh, they did?
Literally, they raided Maricopa County, and
I didn't see that.
They seized paper ballots. I think they seized signature files. They seized a bunch of different things, and it went under the radar. And it was reported yesterday, day before, that, if you would ask me 2 days ago, man, the sky was falling, it's over, the system's dead, humma. But that tells me that there is something going on in the background. And it also tells me that by releasing these files, because look, Arizona was a McCain stronghold for 40 years. And I know a lot of people in politics here, and I've known a lot of people in politics for a lot of years here. In fact, good friend of my family was a senator here for over 20 years. Man, some of the dirt that guy talked about was like, wow, it just makes your head spin. That was 20, 30 years ago. And now, imagine what it's like now. So it means all these people were involved in this Epstein stuff all along, even here, right? That's the part that people, they just don't understand, is that Epstein didn't just affect the national level. This guy went all the way down to the state apparatus, sometimes into the city apparatus, and he compromised, the system compromised police chiefs, judges, university professor, university deans, you name it, hospital administrators, doctors. There was a systematic approach to how they did this. So I think there's a lot of it. That's the interesting wrinkle in the whole week was the Maricopa County stuff, because it means that Fulton County led to Maricopa County, which will lead to Nevada, which will lead to California, et cetera.
Which makes me, when I put it as another data point, it does give me some grounds for optimism that isn't just blind delusion. I was going to say real quick about, Epstein this, Epstein that. It's like, how many places was he before you start to go? In the same way, if a kid goes, how does Santa go to every chimney in the world? You go, well, hey, listen, he doesn't. He's like a blackmail Santa. And eventually you go, Santa's the story we were told. Because this guy's everywhere. He is employee of the month. Like,
so let me and that's why I love the narrative around this, the way it's being spent. He was definitely not CIA.
No.
Okay, that's what we're being told. He's definitely not CIA.
He was Russian, you anti-Semite.
He was MI6, he was Mossad. And I said the other day, all right, let's go with that for just 5 seconds. Are you telling me that one of the biggest worldwide criminals that's going around internationally, all over the world, in major cities that are hotbeds of CIA, and he's operating inside the United States, which, for those of you who don't know, the CIA operates inside the United States. They have stations all over the United States. They're on every college campus. And he did this for 30 years under the nose of the CIA.
Yeah.
And somehow we've spent tens of billions of dollars, if not hundreds of billions of dollars, on intelligence infrastructure. And they fucking missed Epstein? I'm like, what world do you live in that you can say he was not CIA while operating under the nose of the CIA around the entire world?
He just pulled a fast one.
Now you're channeling me. That's fantastic. Because it's true, right? You can't pull off a logistical operation that big without the CIA knowing about it, giving cover and providing resources to cover it up. It's just not, I mean, and that's
like saying the CIA didn't have a role in JFK's assassination.
Oh, God. It wasn't who killed JFK. It's who didn't kill the guy, who wasn't involved in that.
Who didn't want him dead?
Yeah.
And again, logistically, you cannot pull things like that off. Mm-hmm. And every single time one of these major things happened, the commission, back to our original point, in Congress was like, we just screwed up. Oops. Okay, how many screw ups do you get before we stop spending money on a bunch of feckless gumshoe detectives that can't figure out 9/11, that can't figure out the JFK assassination, that can't figure out the Nixon coup? So every single one of these things, when you step back at the 20,000 foot look, is the CIA is playing an intricate role in all of that, because no one is that fucking incompetent.
No, they're not. And I'll go a step further and say the CIA has assumed the role of the mob. They are organized crime, and they always have been. And we just gave them the benefit of the doubt, because movies, television, everything else plays them out to be the good guy, right? And most Americans, you don't know any different. Then you work with them, you're like, you're a soulless fucking shrew. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Well, go back to World War II when Lucky Luciani was working with the naval intelligence.
I was just going to go there. Yep.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah. And so we get rid of Mussolini, who had gotten rid of the mafia in Italy. And what happens in the immediate aftermath of World War II? Oh, we're going to export Lucky Luciano and all of this other mafia apparatus into Sicily, and just in time to take over the opium production in Southeast Asia with Chiang Kai-shek. And we're going to use the mafia in the United States to distribute all of the heroin that's going to flood the market in the immediate aftermath.
And that tells you right there, just that statement right there tells you that you couldn't do that without MI6 and the CIA working together to make that happen, because MI6 controlled the entire European area. They controlled everything, and they were, especially in the drug trade, right? They were the kingpins of the drug trade. I mean,
and the French, SDECE, which ran their Gladio program, OAS in France, controlled the Marseille, the Corsican mafia down there.
Corsican mafia, yeah.
The intelligence apparatus has always been in bed with the mafia. Always.
You have to be, yeah.
Go to this. Yeah. So the book that's written is somewhere here on my desk. The Mafia, the CIA, and George Bush. That book by Pete Bruton tells you about the interplay between the CIA and the mafia in the 1980s during the savings and loan debacle. And just to bring that home forward to today, you've heard of Stefan Halper and the Russiagate and all that other stuff. Mm-hmm. Did you know that in the 1980s, Stefan Halper was set up a bank called Palmer Bank in Washington, D.C. And do you know whose money, because he'd never been in banking a day in his life, do you know whose bank or whose money he used to set that bank up? Herman Beatty and Marsalo, the mafia don down in New Orleans. So they use his money to set that
bank up.
And that bank was set up specifically to money launder the cocaine from Colombia that Oliver North used, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, used to money launder to Iran and the Contras. Palmer Bank was a CIA front bank set up by none other than Stefan Halper. And you fast forward, where did we find Stefan Halper camped out during Russiagate? In the Pentagon's Office of Net Assessment.
God, the incestuous relationships just never end. It's amazing.
Office of Net Assessment. And what was the first thing Hegseth did when he arrived at the Pentagon? Shut down the Office of Net Assessment because it was the CIA conduit into the Pentagon.
Man,
back to the cautiously optimistic. Something.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. So Hegseth shutting that down, raiding Maricopa, raiding Fulton County, and then like you said, the disarming of this bomb. That's how I look at it too. I'm like, this was somebody's weapon, and
yes,
and it looks horrible because there was horrible things, and like he said, not excusing that. In terms of that weapon's capability, it's no longer being controlled by, and they might still make bad decisions.
Correct.
I'll take bad decisions instead of uniform bad decisions.
Correct.
I'd rather a bunch of shitty, this guy's cheating on his wife, this guy's embezzling money. I'd rather all of those kind of just random particles bouncing around than streamlined lockstep, because that's where the power comes from.
Because when you put all those molecules together, they create an atom bomb.
Correct. So to be optimistic, how do we tie all of these things in together? The Fulton County, the Maricopa, the Hegseth shutting down, this stuff being released, the value of the blackmails, we're seeing it go away in front of our eyes. Again, not that they don't need to be hunted down, but what is the connection between all of this? I don't really need a reason. I'm optimistic anyway. I just pray every day and I'm like, hey, God, whatever, you put me here for a reason. Let's rock. But there does seem to be at least, I don't know, some traction, like the wheels grabbing some traction on the ice for optimism, in my opinion.
So what I look at it as is if I was the international syndicate and I had all of these strings down to through the Praetorian Guard, which is how I view the intelligence network and their paramilitary capability down to the players. What I see systematically happening is the snipping of all of those wires. And let me give you one more to noodle on. This has gone largely unreported in the mainstream media, which is a key indicator to me that it's very important. When the Colombian president came to the United States, you're not going to find any mainstream reporting on anything that the Colombian president talked about while he was here. What he specifically talked about to Trump was that the way that you address the demand for Colombian produced cocaine is address the banking system, back to Steve's point, because it's all about the money. If a large portion of the Colombian illicit drug money resides in American banks. They rely on it for liquidity. Okay.
All of it's here. All of it.
So not all of it, but a large portion of it. Oh. Okay. So if you follow what has been happening in Colombia, in order for the Colombian president to come and make that accusation, he had to have had evidence of that, because a head of state is not going to come tell the most powerful guy in the world that this is true without evidence. And let me tell you what evidence he had. There is everybody probably knows what FinCEN is. FinCEN is our financial thing in the Treasury that is supposed to be looking for illicit trafficking of money, either for humans, weapons, or drugs, right? FinCEN has a group, and this group is part of a group in over 170 countries, which is almost all of them, subscribe to this thing called Edmont Group. Edmont Group is located in Canada, and it's the repository for all financial transactions around the world of the participating countries, 170 of them. And so FinCEN goes to Edmont Group and gets data in order to track money laundering. Now, just an estimate of illicit trafficking money on the narco side alone is $1 trillion a year. That's an estimate, because of course it's black market, so there's no final number. Yeah. It's estimated today at being $1 trillion a year. Now they're moving $1 trillion a year around the world, and supposedly this Edmont Group and all of the 170 financial things like FinCEN in the Treasury can't find it. That's ludicrous. You can't believe that. So Colombia, who was a subscribed member of Egmont, did an investigation into where that money was. And do you know what happened immediately after the president of Colombia announced locally on his social media that they had done it? Egmont Group suspended them from their subscription.
Imagine that.
Cut them off. Now, let me go a little one step further.
God.
So on a completely separate, so I've been watching this. I was on Ghost of Base Patrick Henry's show, and him and I were talking about this. And on a completely separate research project, I've been looking into the Pilgrim Society and how the Pilgrim Society gave birth, which is, for those of you who don't know, there's a British version of it and an American version of it. And it basically was created like in 1902 and 1903. The British one in 1902, and I think it's 1 year difference.
I had Will Ramsey do it.
Fast forward 10 years ago, 10 years forward, and the Royal Institute of International Affairs, RIIA, is set up as a derivative of the British Pilgrim Society. Definitely a solid line to that entity. In the United States, under our Pilgrim Society, 10 years later, we set up the Council of Foreign Relations. Definitely a solid line. Okay. What I was unaware of, I'm working on a separate project with a guy in Australia, and he sent me some screenshots of something we've been working on. And he had already done a whole lot of work in this area. So he sent me a screenshot of what he had done. And under the Royal Institute of International Affairs is European subsidiaries. So I'm going down and I'm looking at what France is called, what Germany's is called, and I come across Belgium. Belgium's is called the Egmont Institute. And I'm like, it's EGMONT. And I'm like, what's the chance of those two things not being related? Zero, as it turns out. So the Egmont Institute, which is part of the global order of RIIA, gave birth to the Egmont Group, which is located in Canada. And so the very people that orchestrate all the drug trafficking, all the human trafficking, is in charge of the financial repository for all of that information. And oh, by the way, that Egmont Group was set up in the immediate aftermath of the Justice Department stealing the promised software from Inslaw and creating a backdoor for it and a backdoor for Mossad, which Robert Maxwell was selling all over the world.
You know what I hate about doing shows with you? I learned so much. I said, it's like talking between you and EM. I don't know who's worse, because I sit there for 3 days after I talk to you and I go,
how do you think I feel?
I'm a complete moron. Why did I not catch that relationship? Or the worst part is, you guys both have such deep knowledge of a lot of the connections, right? Because that's the hardest part of this.
She and EM both see patterns.
Yeah, it's not that. Well, yeah, I'm a dullard when it comes to that. But what the see now, I'm tongue tied. You left me speechless.
You feel stupid, speechless.
I feel like a babbling idiot after I listen to that. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, dude, how do you think I feel doing shows with them all the time?
But it's the relationships, right? That's the hardest part of this, is you realize that all these relationships that had these incestuous relationships, right? It's one of the things that I noticed in DC when I was, at the Pentagon, is that you'd see these same faces rotate through all these different shops, and you wouldn't figure out, like, I can't tell you how many meetings I went to where, I worked on some programs that were, let's just say they're compartmentalized programs where you go into a briefing and there's usually one or two people in there. You talk about very specific things, but invariably every two or three, every third briefing, there'd be two or three people in the room that you're like, who the fuck are you? What are you doing here? I've never seen you before. And they sit there quietly, listen to everything that's going on. They ask you questions and you have to answer their questions. And you're like, who the fuck are you? And it's all these relationships that people don't realize have been, the deck was stacked, and these people are brought up in the system, and they're stacked into all these programs, these organizations, to perpetuate the system. And
yes,
and yes, I do feel stupid. But to your point, though, and this is a thing that I think most people can't get their head around, is that to dismantle the system, you have to systematically dismantle the system in a way to where you take away their ability to retaliate, their ability to conduct operations, their ability to, and one of the things that, again, when it comes to messaging, I could talk all day about it, but this system, I mean, and what you said in one sentence, literally, about the relationship between these organizations are supposed to be the financial watchdogs. It tells you that everything's been infiltrated to the point where the only way to fix it is to bring it all to the fucking ground, to reduce it to ashes. So I don't know how you do that without creating absolute chaos.
One way I would do it is release a bunch of files that show that they're all fucking kids.
Yeah, but that doesn't
it doesn't fix it.
Solve the problem.
No. But in terms of a start to move forward, where you have people all going, no, this is fucked. This is what you would do to start it. I'm not saying it's the perfect way or even a good way. That's my grounds for optimism. Or a good way, man. It's.
I mean, what Epstein has shown, which I think all of us can agree on, is it's shown the entire system for what it really is.
Yes.
In its naked truth. As much as you want to deny it. And look, it's like NASA saying, we lost the moon landing videos. Yeah, right. Sure you did. But the point is, it shows you how corrupt every institution was from the very beginning. It was never all those things that we were told. Like, think back when you were in school. Trust first responders, trust doctors, trust the judges, trust law enforcement, trust the government, trust the CIA. It's drilled all the way through K through 12 and even into college. And so we knowingly trusted everything, thinking, oh, well, everything's probably working as advertised. And then you see the Epstein files, and you're like, wow, they've lied about absolutely everything in front of us. So yeah, that's the first step to bring the system down. But it brings it back to the messaging. You have to have messaging so people can latch on to whatever the source of truth is and lead them to the right decision, right? Because people are still getting their news from the local news stations, which are controlled. It goes back to what you're saying. There's the loudest voice is controlled and contrived.
So, but I do believe that at some point the citizenry has to take responsibility for their own education and being able to decipher what is going on. And I'll use an analogy. I love the fact that they're being forced into justifying people that America is one of the only countries, and you can go through the top 100 of countries with a functioning government. We're one of the only ones that don't require ID cards. And they're forcing the narrative of making these people come out and actually say on a microphone, there's 50 million people in America that are too stupid to be able to figure out how to get an ID card or find their birth certificate in 2026 when you can go online and get it. So those 50 million people are going to be discouraged from voting. Well, I've got a news flash for you. If you're too fucking stupid to figure out how to get a birth certificate or an ID card, you damn sure should not be voting.
1,000%.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
that may be a news flash for someone, and they always use minorities.
Well, blacks don't know how to get Wi-Fi. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
It is so insane, and I don't even like
but that shows you how divorced from reality they are, right?
Shows you how.
I don't think they're divorced from reality. I think that is actually a conscious messaging that they have used for the last 50 years.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely, yes. You're too stupid to do
stupid.
it, so we'll make the decisions for you because you're too stupid.
Think about that now. Think about that now. Now that we have social media, and every minority is sitting in their house going, that guy just told me I'm retarded.
Yeah.
How do you think that goes over?
Oh, that's exactly what happened to Obama. He lost his entire base. The whole black community was like, "Why are you lecturing us? You're lecturing us because we're too stupid? Are you serious?
Yes.
Do you hear yourself right now?"
Yes. And
election over.
I actually love putting them in these positions where they have for the last 50 years used that as technology has advanced, where they're the only ones standing out there on that island looking at everybody telling them that they're retarded, and they're all looking at them going, yeah, no, I'm not. So I think their whole empire that they built carefully over time has begun to have foundational cracks that they cannot put back together.
I agree. Wholeheartedly agree with that, because they've it's like any monopoly, right? You get to the point where you've created this entire system that relies on, price fixing, price gouging, manipulation of the market. And at some point, everybody's like, yeah, we're not buying your products anymore because we know it's all garbage and nothing that you've told us about the product. You don't stand behind it, et cetera, et cetera. It's all about money. And again, how do you think Microsoft was beaten in the cloud? Because Amazon innovated their way past them. Granted, it's CIA, I know.
Yeah.
But
it is. The longer you're in a divorced monopoly, you also lose the ability to be cunning.
And to be innovative. Yeah.
You forget how to work hard. You forget how to do the thing.
Yeah, and you buy your own bullshit, right? Because these people are exposing themselves for being completely divorced from reality. I mean, that all of them are divorced from reality. It's like, Do you hear yourselves right now? You could sound like morons. But, you know, the question is, where do you go from here, right? And I'm still back at the why. Why release all this information, and why now? Why? Because you said something, Colonel Watkins, that resonated with me, and that's they always release information before they're going to do something else, something even more insidious. That's where my head's at. Because I see all this information and I'm like, what do they go? When is the other shoe going to drop, and what's it going to be?
So if you take the positive view of it and they're cutting strings collectively, and you watch what's going on internationally as the EU is exposed, and all of the changes that just recently happened in China, there's a systematic cutting of strings that I see. And that's kind of what I focus on. If it's nefarious players doing it, then I would look for something else after this exposure of flooding the zone with information and people being distracted. And time, the only thing we have is time, as far as being able to decipher the motivation behind it. Was it the cutting of the strings, or was it in anticipation of what's going to be around the corner? I don't tend to go in that direction. I tend to look at when I look at what just happened with Colombia, the largest source of cocaine in the world, in addition to what's going on in the EU and that exposure and what's going on in China. I tend to look at it in a much more positive way, but I'm plugged into different people as well. But I do see that systematic exposure operation and the clipping of those strings across the board.
I agree. And I internationally, I think all the right things are happening. The rhetoric has changed. When I know we're on the right track, when Europe says the US has become an enemy, that's when you know you're on the right track. So I think and internationally, you can't underscore how important that visit from the Colombian president was, and him outing the banking system that's funding the cartels. You just can't underscore that enough. That was a massive disclosure. And again, I haven't given it much airtime. By the way, you got to come on one of the roundtables. I want to see everybody on the roundtable speechless after you talk about Gladio or one of those other operations.
I'd be happy to.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to have you on. That would be fantastic. I'm curious to see what's going to come next internationally, because I think that the events in China have been very interesting. And that's still developing. It's still not done. She is still purging people, and he was nowhere then everywhere. So everybody thinks China is like, they think it's one unit. It's not. It's like 1,000 countries all in one. It's an interesting place.
And it's not unlike here. Every country had a deep state, has a deep state. And that's why I every time I see somebody go, oh, the Chinese is doing this in America. Well, okay, but that thing over there called the CIA is doing that exact same thing in America. And you can't fight outside enemies if you don't control the people inside the tent.
Yeah.
There's a lot of projection of the very nefarious things that are going on in our own deep state here in the United States that is being projected outward. And until you actually acknowledge that they're happening inside America, you're never going to win anything that's projecting outward, because just tactically, if you've got enemy inside the wire, you're not going to be successful outside the wire.
Yeah. And I wonder how many of those generals that he purged were CIA assets that were in the process of moving against him, and he was tipped off. Because some of his actions could only come from being tipped off to, this is going to happen at this time.
Who, Trump?
No, Xi. Xi was it was 3 general officers now, right? I thought it was 4, but it was 2 initially. 2 of his most senior general officers in the PLA were moving against Xi, and he was hunkered down in a couple of different places, and they had force on force conflict in 3 different cities. And the I'll just say the way I heard it, the way that it was explained to me was forces were moved into position before the PLA forces were moved into position, as if they knew that they were coming and what they were going to do, and they were soundly defeated. And these general officers were arrested subsequently after that, as if they had all the communication, they knew exactly what was going on and who was doing it. And the way it was explained to me was these were not forces loyal to Xi that tipped him off. It was somebody outside of the system that tipped him off. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but it wouldn't surprise me at all that somebody tipped off Xi that, hey, these guys are going to come for you. Because he's purged a lot of military in the last month, a ton.
That's kind of EM's theory, right? ARC, America, Russia, China, that to a degree they are working together.
I can't validate any of that.
I have no idea.
It's been explained to me a couple of different ways by, I'll put it this way, it's been chimped down for me, because some of this stuff you got to chimp down for me. It's that some of the nuances of this, especially, and again, I go back to Maricopa County this week. The nuance of that is very significant, because like I said, I was, I saw the PCAPs. I was involved in a lot of those audit conversations. I was involved, and I had a lot of people on the ground there that, are on my team that were giving me play-by-plays of what was going on there. And we never thought we would see anything happen. And now the fact that, and this is the part that's unclear. Was it the FBI that went in there? Was it DHS that went there? Who went into Maricopa County? It's unclear if it was the FBI. I would hope it was the FBI. Well, let me say it again. I would hope it was FBI that was actually doing their job, but who knows, right? So there are a lot of that, and I'll tell you, that shifted my whole viewpoint. If it's legitimately true that happened, that shifts my viewpoint away from the system's dead to there's something going on in the background. And I think General Holt said it the best. We're going to be on paper ballots, and we're going to be showing ID at the ballot boxes this fall. I heard that yesterday, actually late yesterday, from somebody that's in the system, and I didn't believe it, but I said I'll believe it when I see it. So,
well, that's where we're all at. I'll believe it when I see it, but I do believe that's going to happen.
I do too. Now I do. After my conversation yesterday, I do. But I'm like, wow, because there were some other things that came out of that. So yeah,
there's too many cataclysmic, once in a zillion lifetimes moments happening, like every other week, for me to be like, nothing's happening.
Dude, I lived a lifetime this week. We lived 5 years in a week this week.
Yeah. I mean, 2026
since January.
Till now. Yeah. 2026 till now.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Those are rumblings. Those are something is happening. And I do think there's reason. I don't know. It could just be blind optimism, but I really do think there's reason to be cautiously optimistic. So yeah, I'm not going to totally give up. I don't know where General Holt is. Maybe he just decided, fuck you guys.
He blew you off. Yeah, it was me. He watched all my shit posts this week. It was like, I can't be on with that guy. Because I was.
Well, if that's the case, he'd never show up with me.
Yeah, you have some good posts though.
I texted her the other day. I was like, "What is this black pill shit?" She was like, "It's all fucked. We're owned by satanic pedophiles." And you're like, "I gotta throw him a bone." And I was like, "All right, fair." I was like, we had just done a show where you were the only one like not blackpilling, and then, like that night you were like, satanic cannibals run the world. And I literally texted you. I was like,
I'm telling you, man,
like, what is this?
It's so hard not to be blackpilled right now, because you see this stuff and you're like, why aren't these guys getting arrested? I mean, you're just like, ugh. Pam Bondi set me off, man. One thing that gets under my skin, like nobody's business, is bad fucking messaging. Because she went in there with that Trump 2016, debate mentality of I'm going to brawl with everybody. We don't need that right now.
No.
We need clear, concise messaging. We need clear, concise, direction of where they're taking this. And whether you can't, like, until they do something about Smith-Mundt and they repeal the Smith-Mundt modernization and start holding the media companies accountable, you're not going to fight them. You just got to outmaneuver them.
And here's my response anytime anybody brings that up. What accountability was there before that?
Well, there was accountability in the sense that you could sue them for defamation and actually have a good case. And there you could flood the system with that, right?
But no one ever did. And the media has been lying to us nonstop since post-World War II that I went back and looked.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but there was a mechanism to go after them, because they've just blatantly destroyed people since Smith-Munn. And there's been no recourse to it, right?
Yeah.
And I've watched them destroy how many people?
The FCC actually take entities off the air, like literally take them off the air, pull the broadcasting license. But even with Smith-Munn, they never did that. And it was proven over and over and over again that they lied out their ass, and nothing ever happened to them.
Yeah. Again, rich people doing rich things behind the scenes that preclude anybody from going after them. And so we have to do something about the media too. That has to
absolutely do.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about that yesterday. We covered Mockingbird, and the people that were, behind that and involved in it. And and it goes back to, Yale Scroll and Key group. You follow those lines into the secret societies of the people that they embedded in the CIA, and then embedded into the media. And at one point, ABC was basically owned by a front CIA company. And all of this stuff got exposed in the middle 1970s with the Pike Commission and the Church Commission, and literally nothing changed.
No.
Because those commissions are like a kabuki dance.
Run by the same people that they're going after.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh, you're going to love this. Okay, since we already brought up Lyman Limisker. So when I was doing the research into, I just covered The Devil's Chessboard, which talks about the whole cover-up of JFK's assassination. And then you fast forward to the Rockefeller Commission that was supposed to, Nelson Rockefeller, of all people that you would want to lead a commission into the assassination of JFK, when JFK was thwarting all of the Rockefeller overseas overthrows of governments, the Rockefeller Foundation, all of that crap. So first we have Dulles running the first one, who was fired by JFK for doing exactly that kind of bullshit. And then the next one that we're going to have and looking into assassinations is ran by Nelson Rockefeller. And do you know who else was on that commission? Lyman Limisker.
Incestuous relationships.
The guy that was in Operation Sunrise sitting beside Alan Dulles. Yeah.
It's probably fine.
I'm sure it's fine. I'm like, I have these Forrest Gumps of Operation Gladio. Lyman Limisker is a Forrest Gump. He shows up. He's the guy that wrote Operation Northwood and was fired by Kennedy for writing a plan to kill American cities by bombing them or flying drone aircraft into buildings or blowing up ships,
schools,
dressed up as Cuban military, using Cuban exiles trained by the CIA, our Gladio, inside America and killing Americans. And JFK looked at him horrified and said, "We're absolutely not doing that." And
that sounds
all of the
freakishly
airmen,
like 9/11.
It's written in Northwood. 9/11 is written in Northwood. So the guy that created that in conjunction with the CIA, General Lyman Limisker, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is on the Rockefeller Commission that was the second look at the JFK assassination.
Jesus Christ. It's like a who's who of retards there.
Oh, and I left out the really interesting point. When JFK fired Lyman Limisker for writing Operation Gladio, he was at the time it was kind of usual for you to get two-year tours as chairman.
Mhm.
So he did his first 2 years and he didn't want to retire. He refused to retire. And so JFK, having just survived the Bay of Pigs and that whole fiasco, didn't want to have another fight with the military because Curtis LeMay was wanting to tactically nuke every opponent there was in the world. He's like, I'm not going to fight that fight today, so I'm going to move this guy over to NATO. Well, who's in charge of Operation Gladio? NATO. And while Lyman Lemmesker is the NATO commander, they repeatedly tried to assassinate Charles de Gaulle over 30 times, till the point where Charles de Gaulle eventually throws NATO out of Paris, which is how they ended up in Belgium. And who did he meet with then? Lyman Lemmesker. Who was in charge of NATO when JFK was killed? Lyman Lemmesker.
You can't make the shit up.
You
just can't make it up.
It would almost be funny if it wasn't so
If
tragic.
it wasn't true.
And if it didn't, result in actual deaths, it would almost be a funny movie.
But the problem is that you when you start digging into this stuff, a layer leads to a layer, leads to a layer, leads to a relationship, which leads to a relationship, or leads to a layer, which leads back to a bloodline family that's heavily involved in the system. You can't get away from it. We haven't even talked about Serco or any of the other huge corporations that are run by some of these families that are infecting every single base that we have on the planet, the logistics chain. I mean, there's so many of those relationships, and we could go on and on about it. So
yeah, I think
it's going to take Colonel Watkins. It's going to take me 3 days to decompress from this and figure out all the things that you said, and then to go do the homework just to scratch the surface of 1% of all of that knowledge. I feel like a complete dullard right now. In fact, I may just...
So we've decided that this summer, I want to go up. I found out that Lyman Lemesker's papers are just outside of Philadelphia. All of his papers were donated to a nonprofit up there. And I definitely want to go up there and go through them because no one's ever looked at him.
You're going to find some interesting stuff with that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would be really curious to what his role in during World War II was, where he was at, what he was doing, who he was working for.
Yeah, I know he ended up as Eisenhower's chief logistics officer at the last part of the war.
Yeah, but where did he start? It's like Ike, right? Where did Ike start? That's like Nimitz. But everybody talks about Nimitz. Well, he's a battleship guy. No, he wasn't. Nimitz was a sub guy, and he was like lower echelon 2-star when the war started. Like, how did that guy get into the role he had in the Pacific? I just, yeah. I had that conversation this week. I'm like, Nimitz was not the first. He was not the first pick of anybody in the Navy to run the Pacific Fleet. Full stop. He was a sub guy that Roosevelt wanted. So,
well, what's the guy's name? It's Mick something. That was MacArthur's chief, the G2 for him. That was an actual logistics officer.
Yeah. I know. God.
Yes, he wasn't even an intel guy.
He wasn't. No,
he was a butt sucker that MacArthur already knew what he was going to do. He just wanted somebody to give it a G2 stamp.
Yep.
It's the craziest story. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? You made a logistics officer in the middle of a war? An intel guy? Yeah, there's nothing suspect about that.
And he stayed in Japan afterwards too. And
yes, he did.
He's got a very interesting tale in Japan after the war. And MacArthur's an interesting dude too.
When they were setting up all of the what did they call them in the Japanese language? Because most people who've never looked into the Pacific theater, we did exactly the same thing we did in Europe. We had a fake Nuremberg over there. all of the Japanese that were in charge, the corrupt ones during the war, they all were not held accountable. And you have MacArthur basically running everything over there while we were setting up Chiang Kai-shek in Formosa and then calling it Taiwan. MacArthur comes to the United States and testifies in Congress. Oh, that's a fledgling democracy. Everything over there is great, as they're bayoneting people in the streets that doesn't want the drug lord Chiang Kai-shek in Formosa selling all of his drugs around the world. William Pauly, that's another Forrest Gump guy. The guy that funded the original Flying Tigers to fly all the opium that turns into Air America. He shows up. He eventually gets to be an ambassador. He's the guy that took his personal yacht to deliver Cuban exiles into Cuba. Why? Because he owned the bus transportation in Cuba when the CIA was using it. He owned a whole bunch of sugar plantations. And we make him an ambassador in a country that we're about to overthrow as part of Operation Condor. Again, he just shows up in all of these different places. He had the entire Curtiss aircraft franchise in Southeast Asia as we're delivering aircraft to Chiang Kai-shek to build the Taiwanese. He had part ownership of Sea Supply, the CIA front company that gave them their Navy, that they could ship all their drugs around the world. He's just that guy that shows up randomly. He's on commissions for the Eisenhower administration. Guess he's one of theirs.
He's not CIA though, not at all. He's not MI6 or CIA. No.
Yeah, he's just
the amazing
CIA is.
Yeah, that's again. We're back to all of our history has been carefully curated, and everything we're seeing is completely fabrication. Like, I'm curious to see what the order of battle is going to be for Cuba. Trump is going to do something with Cuba during his term. I don't know what it is yet, but he's going to do something. And it's clear, because what was the first thing that he said after Maduro was taken out? We're going to repatriate the oil, and we're going to rebuild the infrastructure that was stolen from American companies. That was the first thing he said. Well, what did they do in Cuba? I mean, there was all kinds of activity in Cuba that was, old institutional money that was involved there. I'm curious to see how he's going to deal with that, because we benefit from two things in the Caribbean or Gulf of America. We benefit from a Panama Canal that we can control, and number two, we benefit from a thriving Cuba. Those would be very beneficial for us in the region, to have all of these countries operating and have vibrant economies that would help us in a lot of ways. And I can't help but think, given Trump's moves internationally, that there's going to be something done about Cuba. Finally, something done about it. So we'll see.
Well, see, I have a jaded view. If you go back to Cuba, and the same is true with Venezuela, by the way, what you have happen, and primarily the Rockefellers and Sullivan and Cromwell were behind a lot of the corrupt deals that got these companies into South America. The CIA goes in and destabilizes these countries, and these oligarchs rush in during the destabilization and buy up all of the resources. And they do that by passing bribes to the military dictator that the CIA installs there. And so I'm not on the they stole our infrastructure kind of thing, because most of the business deals that were done to get American companies into many of these countries were corrupt to begin with.
I'm not saying it was that I believe in that or shit.
And in the
I'm just saying that's the first thing he said. He didn't say we're going to put troops on the ground or regime change. He said we're going to repatriate all the infrastructure. That's interesting.
Yeah. And so if you look at the Cuba, if you go back to Batista, and who, by the way, was installed by the CIA, You have the mafia and the CIA controlling that entire island. They were using it for the Corsican heroin and the Sicilian heroin. They were cutting it with the sugar from William Polly's sugar plantation, bringing it into not just his, but there was United Fruit had a huge presence there, as did Sullivan and Cromwell's other customers, i.e., the Dulles brothers customers. And they were prostituting little kids to visitors. They were putting in the casinos. They were flying all of these really corrupt people in. Cuba was the nefarious underworld of Miami before they all moved to Miami. And that all of that activity that happened in Miami was happening in Cuba before Castro. And legitimately, anytime you have that much corruption, the people are going to rise up. That doesn't guarantee you a good leader at the end result of that, but you cannot keep an entire country's people under that type of duress indefinitely. You are going to generate a rebellion.
No, I'm getting
That's why I'm curious to see which way this goes, right? I'm watching Venezuela very carefully because that move, first of all,
don't forget the other thing Trump said immediately after was Cuba, you're on watch.
Yeah.
That's Sorry, keep going.
I'm watching that to see how that goes, right? Because United Fruit was exactly who I was referencing.
Yep.
For repatriation, because they had a huge presence in Cuba. But you're right, it was a slave state. And God, that's a whole
as was Guatemala.
Nicaragua, Honduras. The whole place was basically a plantation. But I'm curious. I'm watching Venezuela closely because that is the bellwether for the rest of the region.
I agree.
If Trump goes in there and allows the business cartels to go back in there and just reestablish business as usual, then we'll see more turmoil and more tumultuous conflict out of that region, and it won't be beneficial. And I had this conversation with Michael Yon. It's been about a year now, and this was just after he was reporting the Chinese building a bridge in the Darien Gap.
Mm-hmm. And
I said to him, what's the path forward down there? I mean, what is the best thing we can do? He's like, look, he goes, I have dinner all the time with dignitaries and generals in all these countries. I know they all invite me to come down and talk to them. They want a U.S. presence back, but what they want vibrant economies like El Salvador, because if we have a vibrant economy in every country down here, then we won't have to worry about any kind
that makes it safer and better.
It makes a number one safer strategically. It makes our economy better, but more importantly, it entices people to move back to their to their country for opportunity that they can't
prosperity.
Get here. Yeah. And he's like, that's the path forward. We don't want to deport people. We want to set conditions in their own country where they're enticed to go back without us trying to move them out of here. And he goes, most of these people, especially from South and Central America, they'll gladly go back home if they know that A, it's safe, and two, the economy's thriving, because it means they can go back and have a way of life that they can't have here. And that's why I say having Cuba and Panama under our control and having a legitimate economy going there is beneficial for everybody, because it takes away all the destabilizing forces throughout the region. And it takes away the hub for nefarious activities for the CIA and for MI6 and all the other places like Venezuela. I mean, there's a fuck ton of jungle in Venezuela that you can hide a lot of operations, and Maduro would look the other way if he was paid the right amount of money. So, like I said, that was a rescue mission.
I think it was.
That still cracks me up every time I say, "Hey, Happy New Year." Like that dude's that dude's on the fair of his life. How you doing? Hey, tough guy, how you doing?
It's surreal.
Funny as shit.
It's like Happy New Year. It's just this weird.
I look at this stuff with comedy, man, because it's so surreal. You just have to look at it and laugh, because like, wow, You just can't make it up. All
Yeah,
right.
man.
I got a hard stop in 5, bro.
Now we're gonna bounce because my brain's fucking cooked. I'm
Yeah.
Colonel Watkins is you.
Every show.
I like to think I'm
Every
pretty
show.
good at this. I've done almost 2,000 of them. I've a little bit of a barrier to like being like cooked. When I talk to you, I'm like, fuck, like
Yeah.
in the best possible way.
I
Uh,
got three. I got 350 shows under my belt, and I can tell you that being speechless on this show is like it's a routine thing.
this is 1,969, and I don't get cooked too often. And I'm sitting
Yeah,
here like, what the fuck? So,
yeah.
um, and I got a text from General Holt. I think his dog is super sick. So, but both of you guys, thank you so much for your
That
time.
is his dog ate his homework kind of thing.
Probably. We're gonna have to grill him. We're gonna send some assets up there. I'm gonna send my Delta guys go find out how fucking sick that dog is. But yeah, we'll wrap this shit up. Guys,
All right.
thank you so much, both of you. Everybody listening, please go to the description. Please go follow the Twitters, writings, YouTube's podcast, blah blah blah. Steve's OnlyFans is debuting soon. And
That's
till
right.
next till next time, Colonel Watkins, Colonel Murray. Thank you so much, guys. Take care, everybody. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Three quick organizations that I try to help through the podcast. I don't take any money from, and I wouldn't if they offered. First and foremost is ARC, the Association for the Recovery of Children. That's led by Basil Baz. It's been around since 1993. They physically liberate sex trafficked children. They get about 10 to 12 kids a year. I've got a fundraiser thrown for them before. You can go to the link in the description. You can donate, I think, as little as $1. It's tax deductible. They are truly doing the Lord's work. This isn't an awareness campaign. This isn't wristbands. They physically go in, kick down doors, and liberate children who are raped daily. They're doing the Lord's work. If you can go help them, you can go give $1. You can also take their training programs and do your best to help spot human trafficking in the world around you. It really is, if there's anything that this podcast accomplishes on this earth, I think it should be to help them. The second group is Invest, like a vest, a bulletproof vest, led by Mike Letts. 25% of police precincts in the United States cannot afford to give their, and this is true, cannot afford to give their officers cars, weapons, nor vests. They cannot do that. And you can donate as little as $1. They have donated over, I believe, 70,000 bulletproof vests in 30 years. Actually, Invest and ARC were both founded in 1983. Fun fact. And Invest is also doing something that is dovetailing actually with ARC. I put them in touch, BAR, Broken Arrow Ranch, which is to make sure that the kids who are rescued don't fall right back into the trafficked system. So ARC, you can go in there and you can help them, and Invest, you can also go in there and help them. And lastly is the Church of the Barbarian Spirit. That's my buddy Clay Martin, Special Forces. It is a group to where Special Forces veterans are helping other Special Forces veterans in unconventional ways, be it fasting, be it psychedelics, be it just face-to-face talking, to reduce suicide rates. And as you guys know, suicide is very near and dear to me. So those are three groups that I really think are actively trying to make the world a better place instead of just talking about it. If you guys could just go check them out, go share their links, go do whatever you can. If you can donate, go donate. If not, that's cool too. But, long after I'm dead, and long after you guys are gone, I want the lasting impact of this podcast to be something that's genuinely helped the world. So if you guys can go check those out, that would be insanely appreciated. Thank you so much. Hey guys, a huge sponsor of the show is Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food. Clayton lives down in Georgia. He's been on the show before. It's actually nearby where I went to college. They are a huge sponsor of the show. They give me some money every month, even when I don't sell enough to warrant that paycheck. Meaning that the show is not free. It's just that it's free for you. If you guys need prepper food, or if you're just interested in supporting the show, I'd please ask you to go to the link in the description. Go to Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food, promo code TPC for 10% off. 72 servings per pail, 25-year shelf life. These things are, they double as dumbbells. Pasta Primavera, cheesy potato soup. mac and cheese, loaded baked potato casserole, chili mac, cheddar broccoli soup, cheesy lasagna, teriyaki rice. You can get banana chips. There's also raspberries, strawberries, and apples. There's a bunch of freeze-dried fruit, or you can even get seeds to plant your own garden. It's not a bad thing to have. It's like gold or ammunition. It's a good thing to have. It's a bad thing if you have to use it, but it's good. It's good to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. So that's what I'd say. And if you just want to support the show, please go to the link in the description. Please go support them because they support me. Thank you so much, guys.